friends, guess what? We're back. It's Sunday night. Man, this week went by fast, didn't it?
That is a sign of a healthy brain. I'll take that.
You know what? Last week, last Sunday, I didn't even want to do the live, but this time I am feeling so much better. Like,
that's so good.
Oh my gosh, so much better. So I am just grateful to not have had a hot flash in.
Ha! That is like a woman absolutely going through menopause when their gratefulness is for the lack of.
Yes. Yes. Like no hot flashes, no depression. Things still are a little foggy because my brain is usually sharp, but man, I've had some peaks and valleys where I feel my brain coming back. Yeah. And that's probably the level of ketones high and then low. But I am so happy to be back. Let me tell you.
Well, that journey of, if you look 20 years of being in internal medicine, one of the things that separates out internists from other physicians is we like to really get messy in the micro details of how to solve puzzles. But never is that more important than when you take a story like yours, like very advanced, and there's lots of like metabolic health. And then there's the whisper of the what happens if she is in menopause, and then it's the whisper of sleep, and then it's another little trickle of not feeling your spirited self. And so
man,
glad we're matched up. There's something about our journey, and when we first began, both never have done lives before and not been on social media as much as this kind of forum. But what sparked us to say yes was our drive to say, if we're brave enough to do this, we're going to help a lot of people. And I just think that kind of that reward or that spirit is truly come back to reward you in your journey of just supporting you through some of the hiccups that could have totally derailed you on a ketogenic journey. But more importantly, you hit one of life's major accomplishments that some of us never do, which is you wrote a book. And it's a beautiful book, and it's about to come out. And I am super, super, super excited for you to do this. This past week, I've often said I am to medicine what Jennifer is to cooking, which is a good educator, keep it simple, know your stuff on the deeper level, but look at what's in this cookbook.
Let me show you my favorite. Oh my gosh, I've got to show you. I mean, I have so many favorites. I have these all pinned, but look at how beautiful this is.
Oh, that's awesome. Look at that. Oh my goodness.
Oh my gosh.
I'm fascinated.
How many tabs I have. I just got this book. This is the first printed. I'm just so happy. I mean, it's just beautiful.
Oh, look at that.
I love a good cookbook that has colorful recipes that have actually been made that I know taste good. Like, I've never gotten a cookbook and it's just printed words and it looks like it's on a typewriter and there's no pictures and you're thinking when you make it, wait, how is this supposed to look? Like, this cookbook is absolutely beautiful. Beautiful.
Well, and I can't wait to get mine. I really can't.
I know. And you know what? Normally it's $22.99, but I just checked Amazon right now. It's only $15.17. It's on pre-order special. So
that's cheaper than a copay, folks. You're gonna get tons of information. Give her all the praise. Give her the glory. Get if nothing else, share it with somebody that you think might want to join the ketogenic world and doesn't know how to make the steps into some good food. It seems like that's the hardest part where people start, just to be quite honest, is that they don't know where to cook. Yeah, they don't. Well, they're trying to find the right foods. They're scared to eat out at restaurants. They don't know what to cook and they want it to be simple. Right. Like, problem solved, dude. I got you. Yeah, I got you. Absolutely. I'll take care of brains and metabolism. You take care of recipes. We are a dynamic duo. Sundays are the place to be, man.
Yes.
Well, no, it's a big deal. My mom ordered one. She actually is visiting her brother and their family tonight and said, boy, I was so happy that I had a few things I could tell them where they need to go to buy. They just need a good cookbook. So that's great.
And that is the truth. When you're starting keto, you need a couple of good recipes. You need some really good things to keep you on track. It's almost like, when people ask me, oh my God, how do I start? I'm so overwhelmed. I'm like, you know what? First thing you do is understand the foods you need to eat. By the way, we have a list in the book of the foods that you need. We have the recipes to make them, but don't worry about calories. Don't worry about macros. Just eat until you're full, eat the right amount of foods, and then graduate to the next level. That's the easiest part.
Yeah. If you look back when our journey first started, here you'd been doing this for 18 plus months, and you had those things down great. And really, everybody has the next level. It's that, do you understand that it's looking from the outside in, watching somebody, coaching somebody, you can see, oh, here's where they need to go to next. And I think that's the same thing with cooking skills, is that here's the basics. Start with removing the stuff that's tempting, and then fill it with things that the rest of us have gone through this learning curve. Do not think you need to reinvent it. It really does get easier the longer you go. And using some of the little hacks that you use and I use, and wrapped into, here's some shortened advice. Don't step in the same pile of poo that we all did.
Seriously. Hey, I'm reading some of the comments here, and they're going so fast I can't keep up, but I'm looking at Skyview Farm says, oh my goodness, after listening to Jennifer's story of hot flashes, I had 3 nights of hot flashes. How could this be? I went through menopause at 42 and total hysterectomy 11 years ago. She's 60 now.
Okay. I'll talk through that.
Yeah.
If you look, those hormones are all fat-based, though. That was the key, that when we were trying to say, can we resurrect Jennifer's symptoms through a ketogenic diet? I would still love one of those little time machines to go back about 15 years and say, don't bathe her ovaries in inflammation for 15 years. And we might have had them last a little longer. Genetics says maybe not, but there's the hope for that. For younger women, the reason you want to do keto is it really does preserve that health. But looking at a 60-year-old without ovaries, that says that's a big source of where estrogen comes from, but it's not the only place. And your body really does, as you march into those later decades, take those fat molecules found heavily in a ketogenic diet, and they are supplying your level of cortisol and testosterone and progesterone and estrogen. And even though the ovaries are and the uterus are the ultimate end organs for that production, if you think that estrogen doesn't affect our brains and our mood, ask any woman doing what you just have done the last few months. I'm telling you, just the removal of the end organ doesn't mean that estrogen isn't still very much a part of what you do. It's a much lesser dose, but if you look at the supply of it, it is a fat molecule, and that fat, or cholesterol, is in short supply on a low-fat, low-calorie diet. You flip the switch to a ketogenic diet and you surge hormones, from growth hormone to cortisol to vitamin D. All of these are fat-based hormones that really do change how you feel. So those hot flashes can be from that surge of an improvement in your ketones over the last several days, especially if you've taken yourself to a new level, like you're now fasting, or you're now extending your window of not eating. All of those will surge that hormone.
Yeah. And they do level out, though. I found that when I first started, I got those hot flashes, and I think it took a couple of weeks, but it seems like your body gets the rhythm. If you're not going through menopause, your body does get that rhythm, and then it does kind of keep going. I took it as a sign that I was in the right direction. Hey, if it could just melt those fat cells as hot as I felt, wouldn't that be awesome?
Yes, that's the key. Yes, let's hot flash you to a weight loss plan. I like that one. And especially because then you can have control. Yeah. It's the unexpected arrival of those hot flashes that really tick women off, man. No, absolutely. Yeah. Well, so can I dive in and ask, last week we talked about how important it was that we'd kind of slid down this symptom slide about having really reset some hot flashes, but really kind of pushing it probably too far for you to say, we should have done this earlier. We should have been taking better care of your sleep health. And of course, this is one of my favorite things. This is my first love in medicine, was sleep medicine. So I said, let me help you. Let's do the protocol that we did with your husband, but we're going to do it with you. And not because your health was as advanced as what his was, but because the reset of deep sleep is so powerful, especially when you have the track record that you had of having really good mental sleep health during the night hours until all this menopause stuff set in. So you set out last week to recruit John to help you protect your time. We made sure he was in communication with me, and then we did the sleep protocol. Why don't you tell what happened?
So sleep protocol, it pretty much sucks.
It's not, there's a reason there's a assigned chaperone for every time I do this. You have to have somebody else who's doing the thinking and who is the rules. They're in charge.
And you don't remember stuff. Mm-hmm. Like my daughter said that she gave me her headphones because I needed them. I'm like, what did I need them for? And she's like, what did you need them for? Where are they? And I'm like, they're the ones that come to me.
Busted.
They come to me. I know where everything is. And she's like, what do you mean you don't know that? I did a Dr. Boz 3-day sleep protocol. I know nothing. That's my out.
You can blame me. Send that right over to South Dakota. I'll take it.
Yeah. So we rested my brain, which I think very much needed the rest. I was before we did it, going through menopause, getting on hormone replacement therapy. I was in the biggest funk. I felt depressed. I felt down. I didn't want to get off the couch. Anybody who knows me knows that is not who I am. Right. Not at all.
And so it's not like there was this impending doom, like you'd lost a parent or you had it was truly this cloud that happens in a brain when it is sinking and you're like, oh, I've seen this chapter a lot of times. Let me help you. We can course correct, but it does take a complete time out. You have to surrender. Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we did this 3-day sleep protocol. I don't remember very much. I got through it. Okay. I think the 4th day, though, I really started to feel really good. And man, I've had some amazing ideas.
Isn't that great? Oh, I love the creativity that comes afterwards. Absolutely. So again, rested brains. People say, I smoke marijuana to get creative. I drink alcohol to, get creative. And they use different things, all of which swell their brain. And it is not, even though there can be sparks of creativity, if you want the programmed schedule of how to get that brain to perform at its peak level, to find that creativity on command and not be run by some monkey living inside that brain, it is a very well rested and a low inflammation found in a brain. And go ahead.
And let me tell you, you don't even realize the funk, or you don't even realize the potential of your brain until you get to that level. I messaged friends this week about their businesses, giving them business plans that had nothing to do with my business because I knew it would be good. And answers that I got were, oh my God, that's brilliant. And I'm like, I know, right?
Yeah, chalk it up to a good brain health protocol. No, that's beautiful. And that isn't what we get every time. But when you had some major things that were predictive of that great results, which is you've been keto for over 2 years. You really do have a good schedule in life. You do have a bedtime that's pretty stable. And, that health is the platform that I got to launch off of. So kudos for that baseline and then not slipping into the really severe parts that I've seen folks take much longer than 3 nights of really good sleep. The first night your sleep, you said you woke up still 3 or 4 times. And that was my hint saying, okay, we're going to have to do this. Here's your next dose. And then, but knowing by the 3rd day how much better your energy felt. And then really making sure that your support system knew, turn off the screens, give her a coloring book, do anything but turn on and do work because I need her brain. First of all, she's not going to like what she comes up with in that first zone. It will get better, but she has to slow down that kind of noise to get this effect. So,
and when she says turn off the screens, that meant computer, internet, TV, iPad. I mean,
it's like
what do you do with yourself? Like no TV, like I don't even watch TV that much, but if I'm not on the internet or if I'm not outside walking around, and by the way, you feel like a zombie. You feel like you really don't want to do anything. Mm-hmm. So you're sitting on the couch, nothing is on, and you're like, what the heck? So, I mean, I colored.
Yeah, it's real. And again, I tell people there's a couple of things I was going to do some teaching here was when I'm trying to find the zone and I get in a glitch, like I've either got too many stressful things coming at me, either I haven't slept, whatever, I do something called left-handed loops. The place I teach these is actually, the first place I did this was jail. So I would go into jails and I'm teaching about mental health and, teaching about addiction and brain repair. And everybody there has been traumatized. Everybody there has a trauma story. And if they didn't have it before they went into jail, they have it once they're in jail. And it's just a really tragic experience. And so there's not enough resources to have a therapist for everybody, you cannot use sleeping meds when you're in jail. So I taught everybody, every class I started began with something called left-handed loops.
Is that what this is? Like, do it left-handed like that?
Well, I'll tell you, that's an infinity, and that's not a bad one, but the better way to do it, it taps into the research that has to do with what happens to our brains when we write cursive. So if you if you're right-handed, you'll put the pen in the left hand. If you're left-handed, you'll put your pen in the right-handed. So I call them left-handed loops because most people are right-handed, but you take it in your left hand and you start making the cursive L, and you go all the way across the piece of paper. And then you go across the next line, and then you go across the next line. And when I do my workshops of brains repairing brains, I have everybody in the room do this. Yep. Wait. There you go. Yeah, because it looks odd. Well, you want to do the lowercase L, so it kind of just looks like over and over and over.
A pretty capital one.
I know. I'm like, you did that with your left hand, girl. That's great.
Okay, the lowercase ones are super easy.
Yep, they're super easy because what you're trying to do is so the rules when I do this in my workshop are there's no noise. There's no burping, farting, laughing, giggling, zero noise. And the timer goes on for 3 minutes. And I usually have this really big wall sticky, and I'll take a big black marker that's kind of squeaky, and I'll make sure that I make squeaky noises so they can see it's not about being pretty. It's about finding a rhythm. And I do it over and over and over, and they get to watch me. And the key is I do this when patients come in, and if they're super stressed and they're like so chaotic, their brain's so noisy, they're just spouting off symptoms I can't even follow. They're not even complete sentences. I said, all right, we're going to shut up together and do left-handed loops.
So what does this do to your brain? When you're doing this for 3 minutes, you're concentrating on trying to do what's happening up here.
Right. So it is the most rudimentary form of meditation. So what you're doing is you're finding this rhythmical motion with the opposite side of your brain that's used to writing, and it slows down the noise. And when you do functional MRIs to watch what you're doing, it is just, again, chaos, 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 and then it slowly improves.
I'm going to use that on my 14-year-old.
It's real. I've had times where either they have to jump rope for a minute or do left-handed loops. You pick, because I can't deal with whatever's going on in your brain right now. You're not consolable. And I have boys.
Yes. No, I've been told I need to meditate, but for me to sit down and just not do anything and try and think, my brain goes like crazy. So that's a really good technique.
Right. And the key is 3 minutes is attainable. Like, you can ask people to do this. So I would do this at the beginning of my workshops, whether they were in jail or whether I'm doing one of my day-long workshops. And not only do I find myself breathing slower, my heart rate settles down in 3 minutes. That's a little commitment. But I have still to this day letters that get written to me by patients that were in jail saying, I couldn't sleep in that jail until you taught me that. And you can have a pencil and paper, and you can do it in the dark. And I found myself just settling down the noise in my brain as I got through my 90-day stint in jail. It was amazing. Those are the kinds of things where you say, it's not about the resources, it's about the information for the right person in the situation. And
I love that.
Yeah, it is. And from teenagers to elderly with dementia, I'll tell you, this is a great trick to just say, all right, let's take a step back, both of us. And so I do it in part to imprint on them to say, no, I'm doing this too. I'm slowing my brain down too. And also because usually if they're stressed, it's not easy. It's easy to jump on the bandwagon and get stressed and like, oh, I got to walk out of the room.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Wow.
Yes.
You see.
So the other thing, how did your eating and sugars do while you were on that protocol?
Can we skip that part?
Absolutely.
So I'm going to just tell you, I'm just a regular person, because I know you talk about how wonderful I am, but let's just say I was not wonderful this week. And I didn't cheat per se, because I don't feel the need to cheat, but I didn't care what the heck time I ate. There was no shutting down early. If it was 9 o'clock at night and I was hungry, I didn't care. I ate.
There you go. Well, and there's something about just saying your metabolism will be impacted when your brain is working. Life has these seasons, and this season we got to get you back on the trail.
Yeah. This last season, or this last week, was not my season. It was not. And I want to say that the scale, I think, shows that I'm up 5 pounds. But I feel I was depressed. And I feel like I had some Lily's chocolate chips while I was sitting there watching TV. I just didn't care. I didn't care about anything.
It's interesting, because as I was thinking about you this past week, I'm trying to put together another book, which means there's chapters of more, the first book I wrote is meant for beginners who don't think the ketogenic diet has anything to do with anything.
Tell them what it is first.
Oh, so there you go. Any Way You Can.
Any Way You Can by Dr. Annette Bosworth. You can get it on Audible. You can get it on Amazon. And let me tell you, when you buy one, you will buy 5 more. That's what happened to me. I bought one. And then I ended up buying 5 more for friends that I knew needed to help. It's a story of how she teaches the keto way and the science behind it, guys. Not just recipes, the science behind it. But she also tells the story of her mom going through cancer and how she's helping her mom to fight cancer through keto. So it's a really good read. Yeah.
Unbelievable blessing. Again, never planned on writing a book, but boy, what a great journey to share. And how many people. I think I've helped more people in over a year of publishing this book than I helped in 20 years of running an internal medicine clinic. So thank you very much, Kim. Absolutely. Those comments are very well, and they're humble for me to hear, and also very much appreciated. But as I was writing the book, as I was doing that, they were really the basic lessons on what you need to know about the ketogenic diet. And boy, it doesn't take long to see there's lots of advanced places that we have science coming through. And as I write about it, it's hard for me to write about something when I don't have a patient in mind. That's my own glitch. So I used your brain as some of the things I was working on this week. And I have some slides if you want to take the time to show. Remind everybody that when I went to medical school, the test question was, brains use glucose. Brains use glucose unless you're dying of starvation. Brains use glucose, and they prefer it. And what the evidence continues to show is that we can treat things like seizures and help with cancer, and, oh, by the way, some weight loss. Our brains actually prefer ketones over glucose. And this is a powerful improvement on what our science world is teaching us. So on this slide, I like to use those words to say brain metabolism. We're looking at brain metabolism, and we're looking at something called PET scans. Stay on that slide just a little bit longer. It's a really small study, only 10 healthy adults. And what they did was they looked at both glucose and ketones in their brains. And as you study this, I expect all of their brains to be using glucose, and only in severe states for their brains to use ketones. The average age went from 20 to 50 with an average of 35. And on this ketogenic diet, they were not keto adapted. They were healthy, normal, standard American diets. And then they went to a very advanced ketogenic diet, like the kind I had my mom on for cancer, or the kind you have for a seizure diet. So in this first one, that tool over onto the side there is a measurement of how much of the brain is using this glucose for fuel. So the higher on that scale it goes, the more the brain was using it. So you can see several parts of that brain had a red zone. But then if you look at day 4 on this ketogenic diet, now remember, stay on the slide just a little bit longer. This part of the slide shows that by day 4 of that ketogenic diet, there's hardly a red spot in their brain. It's
And what is
mostly
the red? What was the red? That's where they're using the ketones?
right. So on this picture, if you can see that little word glucose at the bottom of the scale,
Okay.
this one is measuring glucose. And so at the top, that previous picture had all that red on it because so much of the brain, in fact, 98% of the brain of a non-keto adapted brain is using glucose. And that, I mean, that's what I learned in medical school. You're only going to find this ketones when you're going to die, when you're, dying of starvation. But you put them on this really strict high ketogenic diet. This is only 4 days into this diet. And look at the drop in their glucose consumption. Now go to the next slide. So this one measures ketones. So if you look at that scale on the side, just like the other one, you'll see that the red means really high ketones, but the purple means hardly any ketones. So you could make the argument that these people on day 1 had practically zero production or use of ketones. There was nothing that was being taken up. But on day 4, look at what happened to their brains.
Wow.
You just lit up those brains on a ketogenic diet saying, wait a minute.
In only 4 days.
In only 4 days. And this is, again, very is almost the opposite of what I was taught in medical school, saying your brain's not going to prefer ketones. It's not going to use ketones. In these states, we really reduced their carbs, put them on a very extreme ketogenic diet. They weren't fat and they weren't overweight. I mean, they weren't insulin resistant. So that is important to know. These were healthy people between the ages of 20 and 50. So now go to the next slide. On this one, I just remind you, our brains do prefer ketones over glucose, but they have to see them. So at this point, I just do a quick review to say, there's our measuring tool. On day 1, looking at glucose on the top and ketones on the bottom. You can see all the red on that glucose on the top, and then all the purple on the ketones on day 1 on the bottom. Now push the next slide and you'll see that day 4, you have a huge reduction in the glucose, hardly any red, and a blast off of the ketones by day 4, measuring those. And this is the key to this, the whole study, is that when you look at the rate at which the brain starts to use these, we have said forever that an elderly brain gets defects, gets that brain fog, gets that sluggishness, gets that memory glitches because the fuel isn't matching. It needs glucose. It needs glucose. It needs glucose. But wait a minute. If you offer it ketones, push the space bar for the next, or the forward for the next one. If you offer it ketones, you will find that these researchers show you within 4 days, you can start to see the brain prefer it. One more click on the slide and you'll see that when I get to say, actually, I think, yeah, this, just let it be, it'll play this out. So here's just the rate at saying when we see that glucose go down in the brain, at the same time, we offer it ketones. If you look at the rate of that, the higher the ketones went, the lower it preferred the glucose. And this is a metabolism burn. So we're looking inside the cells of your brain. How fast did it burn ketones? How much did it prefer ketones? And the old dogma would have said, you cannot have a brain prefer glucose over ketones. It's always going to want the ketones. But that isn't true. These researchers were able to show that in the healthy brains within 4 days, the brain was preferring the ketones. They are not keto adapted, but they're starting to prefer the ketones. And of course, taking that into the long-term research, where brains of Alzheimer's or brains of aging or brains of a metabolic mismatch, we now know that if we offer ketones to their brain and we do that not just for 4 days, but we do this in a ketogenic diet. And then you got to be smart about it. You really do need to check your ketone levels. And, you've done a great job of that. But as you look at how do we make sure that your brain doesn't sink back into that depressive state or it doesn't return into that sleep disorder, I mean, we've always got a way to help you. That's the great safety net of living in 2019. But if we can make sure that the ketones offered to your brain are at a higher level, we are going to find that your brain continues to improve. Those mood disorders become less symptomatic. And this isn't just a guess. We have evidence showing the uptake in the brain gets higher and stronger as long as you push the ketone level up to the next joint. So in the past, we've talked about, yep, you could do ketones in a can. Yep, you can do MCT. But in your case, really, once you were able to embrace the fear of fasting, you really did have a great response to your system when you fasted. So even if you're not ready for that this week, we know that that's a great little tool to have in your back pocket.
So just to remind everybody, those who hadn't tuned in last week, we talked about a good, better, best for upping those ketones. So I feel the need to remind people of what that good, better, best is. And we talked about exogenous ketones as being a good, but we also talked about the better was MCT oil, specifically the chains C8 and C10.
Yep, very good.
But the best is fasting. Like we can produce those ourselves, and they are the best. They're the ones that work the best. I need to work on that this week, because last week I didn't give beep, beep, beep.
Right. Well, the other thing is that I really believe in following your numbers, that if there's one part about being an internal medicine physician and being on such a heavy bandwagon for ketones these days, it's because you can study it, that your brain is going to say, all right, we've had these glitches, we've had this hormone mess, we've got her sleeping again. Now I need her to step up to the next level. And of course, you've had such a great metabolic production over these, 5 months, whatever we've been doing this, that I would be really interested to see what is your morning fasting ketones and morning fasting glucose, knowing that we haven't been as great about checking that because we got all these other distractions. But what happens when you look at that baseline again of where are we at now? Where is her system at now? Get 2 or 3 days of that, and then really do plan for that 36-hour fast. Again, I'm a big proponent of the 36-hour fast over the 24-hour fast, because it really makes it more difficult to cheat, meaning there is a no zone. There is a day from sunrise to sunset, that there is only black coffee, water, and salt. That you eat a really nice meal on the supper or after. Good job.
I keep it on my desk.
Yes, that's perfect. But having that 36-hour fast where you use 2 nights of sleeping, so you got 16 hours if you're getting 8 hours of sleep, where you get to protect yourself from the refrigerator, protect yourself from your own habits. And then really you only have 1 day where you hopefully find yourself rather busy. I love it if I'm kind of trying to get back on a bandwagon, that I'll treat myself to a magnesium float. I just think those are great for keeping me away from all the stuff I screwed up with. And then I always sleep better the nights that I do that. So,
and let me just tell you, as somebody who totally feared long fasting, like 12 hours was okay. 16 hours had been a stretch for the longest time. But I hadn't even done a 24-hour before I jumped to the 36. But let me tell you, if you are fat adapted and you are pretty good on the foods that you eat, it is actually easy. It is actually easy. And if you are not good on the foods that you consume, I would wait until you are good on the foods that you consume. And I know, because my husband tends to not be good sometimes. And I saw him struggle, and I was surprised that he struggled and I didn't. I thought I would be the total baby, and I was not. So I was totally shocked.
But it is amazing. So, I told you last week that I predicted he was going to have a harder time than you because he cheats more, right? And that's okay. It works for him. He's still losing weight. But really, when I look at John's health and say, what's the most powerful part about why I want him to keep fasting, why I want that weight to get down even lower, is that he is a male with some biomarkers, with some tough sleep schedules in the past. So I know his inflammatory markers, or his, free radicals, or the oxidative stress is another way to put that, is a very powerful predictor of his aging health. And you can reverse that but you really have to clean up the zone of no food, of really kind of igniting your own autophagy. Repairing that little knee is one of his motivators. But what I think of is repairing his metabolism in general, to gift him the next several decades of not struggling with the chronic illnesses that he has had haunting awarenesses of, unfortunately.
Yeah.
How often? 36-hour fast every week. So the question is, how often should you do a 36-hour fast? Every week? I fast every week, starting on Sundays. During these lives, I'm fasting. And then I wake up in the morning. I try to use Instagram to post my Dr. Boz my Dr. Boz numbers. And I do that to encourage patients and to show them I do this, but I also do it because I need accountability as well. Once a week is a great place for me. If I want to shave off the extra 15 pounds that I think would be great in my own health, I probably should do it twice a week. But life has seasons, and I'm good right now. I'm tapped out for all the change I can handle. So, but at least once a week, maybe twice a week, depending on how fast you want your metabolic health to change.
So I start on Monday evening. For some reason, Mondays I just find are hard for me to do, or Sundays, because I'm with the family. That's when we have our time. And that's probably the only day we actually go out to eat as a family, maybe.
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, so I find that I do it on Monday evenings, but I do it I've started doing it once a week. Don't count last week. That was a crapshoot.
So here's the other thing, though, is if you've never fasted and I go back to the first few fasts that Grandma Rose had, and I talk about this in the book. She was in a very severe life-threatening situation, and she did live on bone broth for a month. There were some key things to that bone broth, very high nutrient dense bone broth. This was the kind of bone broth that gels at room temperature, that it is incredibly nutrient dense. And she would live off of 1/4 of a cup in the morning and 1/4 of a cup in the afternoon. That's it for over a month. And when you read the book, you really do see she had a life or death situation. As her daughter, I tried to be supportive. I made it like 3 days, and then I'm like, oops, screwed that up. The point I'm saying is I wasn't ready for that. I remember my first 72-hour fast was after a patient asked me if I'd do it with him. And at first I thought, no way, I don't have to do this. I'm healthy. But then I'm like, okay, that's probably not the right answer. And I'll be honest, I think the first 15 fasts I did, I had bone broth. It was just how I needed that warm liquid to just get through the moment. At that time, I was using bone broth. That's what I would sip on while the family would have their meal. So I'd sit down at the table with them. The smell of food is everywhere. It's really tempting for me. And I would use that cup of really warm bone broth, really salty bone broth, to get over that. Now, my numbers probably weren't as good then, but at the same time, it was as good as I could do. So I found that even though I put forth the rules, especially if you got a metabolic health problem that you're trying to get through, the strict fast is the best. But just like the exogenous ketones, MCT versus fasting, good, better, and best fasting is, I have people who fast and they still use heavy cream or MCT. I would encourage you that if you're keto adapted, instead of putting the fat down your mouth, we want you getting fat out of your fat cells. And that is the benefit of being keto adapted, is that you restrict the body's need for energy. And if you're not putting any down the gullet, it's going to find it in your storage. But that really depends on what your numbers have been. And if you've been in a high insulin state for decades, it can take more than 12 hours of fasting to get your body's chemistry low enough to open up the gates of its energy. So that's where a 36-hour really is the golden ticket for most people.
Can we talk about something else? Can we talk about how during these fasting, because I felt like a total failure. And I remember seeing in this group, people had ketones of 2.0, 3.0. Somebody had 4. And I was like, what the heck? I'm totally slacking here. My highest ketone, I think, was 1.5. Now, we talked about this a little ahead of time, and I wanted to really bring this up because everybody's like, wow, how did you get your ketone so high? But it's not just about the ketone number. Right. It's also about the glucose. And my glucose number, I look back, I had a 1.5, but my glucose number was 69.
Well, this absolutely is a great teaching point, because the reason that Dr. Boz ratio came about was when you study the research and you go back into the major therapeutic ways of saying we are trying to advance their chemistry into the most charged metabolic scenario that we can for people with seizures and cancer. When you translate that into somebody trying to lose weight, we're still trying to take Jennifer Marie's chemistry and advance it to the level where she will get the weight loss off that she wants. And that isn't just one number or the other. It is the combination of the two of them at once. And so when Jennifer Marie would have, not as sexy of a keto number, only 1.5, what you cannot ignore is that her sugar was like in her 50s or 60s. So when you use the Dr. Boz ratio, it does really compare apples to apples.
That ratio that I had was 46%. 46.
Very, very, very good. That's really good.
I want to remind people that anything under 80%, you're in a weight loss zone. Anything under 40%, you're immune boosting. And then when you get in the 20%, that's cancer fighting. So that ratio, you take the glucose, you divide it by the ketone number, and you get that percentage. That's what we're talking about.
Right. And, this really is a way for us to measure what is your insulin. What is the Dr. Boz ratio really? What's the punchline that we're getting to is I want to know what's your insulin level. And when you look at people whose ketones are up there at 2, because this is the first time they've really challenged or charged their system with, depriving it of calories, their sugars are still sometimes 80s, 90. Sometimes I've seen them over 100. And it's because the body's saying, hey, we have a bunch of this storage that we can empty. Yeah, I can see that she's not putting as many calories in, so I'm going to charge up the production of ketones. But unlike Jennifer Marie's situation, where she has, like, if I had a biopsy of her muscles, I would say they're like 80% keto adapted, like 8 out of 10 cells are running off of ketones. That's a really advanced ketogenic state. She's practiced this a long time. If I would biopsy John's, her husband's, I would expect his to be closer to maybe 5 out of 5 or 6 out of 10. 5 out of 10 or 6 out of 10, meaning his ratio of the number where he's really stressed his system to push for burning ketones is not as efficient as yours. And you can tell that by what happened during his fast. During his fast, his mood got irritable. He's like, I want to go to bed. And usually their ketones will bounce way up because the liver says, we better make some ketones. But there are several of those ketones or several of those cells that have not burned ketones. And so they have to awaken the kind of the tools or the parts inside the cell to turn it on. Yours are turned on, ready to go. As soon as you make a ketone, your body uses it. And so it's very flexible. It's very adapted. And that's how you can keep your sugar so low. In those people who do not stress their system, they're still emptying their sugar production. They're still taking out stored glucose from muscle cells and liver cells. And the longer they go without food, the higher they raise their ketone production and become more keto adapted. So that Dr. Boz ratio really is a perfect way to snapshot what is your metabolic health? What is your metabolism doing? I would love to see what your numbers are this week, just to see, what is your metabolic health doing after we've got the sleep schedule back to a pretty normal routine for you. And we've got those hot flashes not haunting you with a bunch of cortisol surges.
Well, this week I am heading full force back on track. I feel like last week was just a blur. I'm so happy to be feeling great. Like, oh my God, I can't even tell you how happy I am to be feeling good. Get back to work, get back to routine, get back to eating the way I'm supposed to be, eating the times that I'm supposed to be eating, fasting. So tracking will come with that as well. So we'll definitely see how that's going to go.
Yeah, I think that accountability for the people watching too, as it's the benefit of being the hosts of this, is that it's easy to fall off the wagon and then stay in a slump for weeks. I mean, every person who's journeyed a few years around the sun knows that those slumps happen. But there is a benefit of being the leader of a group and that accountability of saying, okay, you can do this. And you've got lots of people cheering you on. I just think that's a testimony to your leadership, but also it's a great part to have in your back pocket for accountability.
Yes, it's awesome. I know that my next step also is incorporating some powerlifting. I am not powerlifting like lifting, but weight training is what I mean. Because I work at a desk, I cook in the kitchen, like I am home all the time. I work out of my house. So I don't get out. And I even find it hard to just go for a walk, take my dog for a walk. So I really think that I'm going to hit the gym, like really try and find, I don't know. I say that, let me get back on track for this week.
I was going to say, here's the part about that I'm really careful about is that you look at change in any behavior. And once you find a rhythm, you can make one tiny little change. And then after you stabilize that change, then it becomes, take it to the next level. Much like what happened with your ketogenic journey. For 18 months, you mastered how to eat and you had great rewards. But for months before you and I met, you were in this zone of not being able to lose further weight. Yeah. And each time we set we move your cheese just a little bit further, saying, now try this, now try this. Yeah. And before I would have you do any type of long-term anything, you live in Texas, for heaven's sakes. The easiest way for you to zone and to, again, for your mental health, for preparing for that sleep stuff, is to put headphones in and go for even just a 15-minute walk before you prepare for bed. That isn't weight training. That isn't muscle. That isn't all the stuff that I'm going to eventually teach you through what I would do next. But what you're doing is you're making this tiny little time commitment at a place where it really will make a benefit. If you can just add 15 minutes of walking, it doesn't push you to that stressful level that says, I just can't take on anymore. I have seen people fall off the wagon too hard with those kinds of changes. So I wouldn't be buying a membership or adding to a membership. I wouldn't be, joining a big group. I would add one tiny little thing that is attainable to you, like not running, just go for a walk, 15 minutes, set the timer, walk out 7.5 minutes, turn around and walk back. And that alone can be just enough of the stress, which is a good thing for your system to enhance to the next level.
I can do that. 15 minutes does seem attainable because the gym so it takes me 30 minutes to get there and 30 minutes back. And then an hour, that's why I don't go. It's like I need 2 hours. It's like I need
No, and I'll tell you, every busy woman I know has fallen into that trap. One of my favorite things is the only thing you need are a pair of tennis shoes. You don't even need fancy clothes. You can go in your work clothes. Just go for a walk. We all have phones. Put the headphones in. Find out what it is you like to escape with, and use that as your comfort zone.
I know I sweated today because I'm in spring cleaning mode. Man, I donated. I got 7 bags of clothes from now that don't fit anymore that I'm about to donate.
I would say, oh my goodness, I have a senior who I am going to put out a huge request to say we are still praying for an acceptance letter for the United States Air Force Academy for my son. The good news is we don't have a rejection letter, so that's good. But it is these next 10 days that are going to be really critical on whether or not he gets it. And it would be such a gift for him. So please, if you're a person of faith, I would ask you to pray for him. But he's got a graduation coming up in 6 weeks. And I'm like, oh, this is this zone where every other mom in town does this clean and pictures. And I'm like, oh, I don't have any space for that right now.
Let me tell you, the only reason why we were in cleaning mode is because I went out to garage sales this weekend and I found the most beautiful, beautiful Drexer chest of drawers. It's like 6 or 7 drawers high. It's really tall. It's cherry wood. It's beautiful. I bought it for $30.
Oh,
and all of a sudden we were taking out, from the old IKEA dresser that's fallen apart and putting it in this massive, beautiful chest of drawers. And then that led to the closet and then the other chest of drawers. And I'm like, next thing you know, we spent all day cleaning out it was good. Spring cleaning.
Now, none of that in me right now.
A couple more rooms to go. It's not fun.
Well, congratulations. I will let you own that full space. I'm not stepping anywhere near it.
Well, we will definitely say prayers for your son. It's in 10 days. 10 days.
Well, they don't give you a date. I mean, it's a group. They're filling their list, right? And I just, as a mom, you pray for them finding what motivates them. And I didn't think of the military as something that he would be attracted to, but I am telling you, when he came home after touring and asking questions over the summer about this option,
Oh,
I almost felt like, oh, how awful that I didn't, as his mother, see the connection about what a great fit that would be for him. Not
oh,
for all of my sons, but for him, he is so disciplined. He loves the schedule. He is my firstborn rule follower. And I just feel, yeah, I am praying with my whole heart that I believe prayer is, it's the only thing I can do as his mom. And I really think it would be such a blessing for him. So if you're a person of faith, pray for Prescott Haber to get an acceptance letter to the United States Air Force Academy.
definitely. Deb says, oh, whoops, sorry. We've got praying marks. Hold on. Deb says, daughter and sister of a Marine. Hoorah.
Yay.
Yes, lots of prayers for sure. Well, good talk as usual. I don't think I have anything else. Do you guys have anything else?
I just want to say, how many days are we out from the actual book launch?
Oh my gosh, May the 7th. Oh, and I didn't even tell you, if you do pre-order the book, which is right here, look how thick this book is, right?
That's so cool.
The pre-order bonuses that you get are 3 months worth of meal plans, but look at the side-by-side thickness.
That's so awesome.
And it's only $15.17 right now. Like, it's a steal. If you're thinking about Christmas gifts, like, that's a really nice Christmas gift.
Yes.
So
the good thing about recipes like that is that it's a gift that you get to, I mean, I have expectations for other people right now that I'm like, oh, this will be perfect. This is way better of anything than else I could give them. So it's a big deal.
Well, it's just so nice to be able to help people. Like, for me to be able to help people with food, I'm very picky. Food has to taste good. So I just know people are going to love it. I know. How can they not?
I'm very excited for you. I think it's going to be a game changer in your life. Good job.
I'm excited. Well, thanks for coming on. Thanks for everybody who pre-ordered. If you did pre-order and you want to redeem those bonuses, don't forget to go to lowcarbinspirations.com/pre-order, and you can claim all of those pre-order bonuses to be downloaded, and you can print them off like I printed them off if you want. And I think that's it. Dr. Boz, thank you so much for coming on. I love that we do our Sunday talks. It's something that I really look forward to, especially when I'm feeling good.
I know. I'm so glad you feel better. I'm so glad. There's nothing better, more rewarding as a physician than to see a transformation in a patient. So congratulations.
It is amazing how your brain and sleep and all the expertise that is in your brain that has helped mine. It's just, oh my gosh. And you know what? I need to tell you that I get messages, I get emails every day, people thanking both of us for doing this. And I know that they reach out to you too, because they tell me, hey, I already sent a message to Boz and I'm sending one to you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So I am personally thanking you because I know we're helping people. You've helped me, you've helped my husband. And I just love it. I love that we're helping people.
There's a good journey ahead for all of this. So I appreciate your vulnerability to be in front of people with your story, and that transparency is something that is a testimony of your courage. So for all those out there, accolades to Jennifer Marie as she marches through the last few weeks of her pre-order. I think she deserves all the stardom, all the credit. Good job, girl.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, we'll see you next week.
Okay. See you
then.
Have a
good one. Bye-bye.
Please subscribe to my channel. And don't forget to click the notification bell so you don't miss out on any new videos. Stay tuned.